I'm going to take a chance to welcome everybody to the Bon Voyage Travel and African Travel webinar series. We're very excited that you're here today to join us. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes while we have all of our attendees logging on in this day of technology. Some of you may be familiar with Zoom. Some of you may not be familiar with Zoom. So we wanted to give everybody a chance to log on. Before I get started with our official introductions, I will go through a couple housekeeping things here and some logistics. I'm calling it the rules of engagement for Zoom webinars. So we'll go through that here in a minute, but I wanted to welcome you. My name is Ryan Hansen. I'm the president of Bon Voyage Travel here in Tucson, Arizona. We want to thank you for joining us on our weekly webinar series, and this is going to be a really good one. We're very excited. And before we get started, no, I am not in Africa right now, but my virtual background might make you dream of Africa. I was 1 year ago today on my way to Kenya and Tanzania for my first African safari, and I can tell you it was a life-changing experience. The picture behind me is the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania and is one of my favorite pictures from that experience. I'll tell you a little bit more about that before we get started. But if you've never been on Zoom before, just a refresher, just to let you know, we can't see you. You can only see us. You can see our presentation and our esteemed colleague here, John Godfrey, who I'll introduce in just a minute. If you have questions throughout this presentation, we want to field them. We're excited about engaging with you. So please, you are not going to come on live on the air as if we were in the same room together, but right at the bottom of your screen is a button that you can press that's labeled Q&A or chat. Feel free to type in your questions, and we'll be monitoring those throughout the presentation. And I'll either answer them or our team advisors will answer them during the presentation, or we'll have a chance to have John answer them at the end of the presentation. So thinking back to a year ago, I was headed to Africa, as I mentioned. And these first couple pictures are of me and my wife in the Masai Mara. I mean, we're talking unbelievable shots. And yes, that is my wife taking a video of one of the big five, the leopard there. And yes, we were that close to the wildlife. Very safe. The guides that we were with on this, in this Jeep were very friendly and understood the animal life. Our guide had been in the Masai Mara for 19 years. So he understood these animals and actually knew this very leopard and knew that we would be safe around him as he was sauntering through the grass highlands there in the Masai Mara. But an experience unlike any other. It's not just Jeep rides and animal life, it's culture. This is me and my best attempt at trying to jump as high as the warriors, and I think I did pretty good, but let's be honest, I'm not at warrior status by my jump here, but boy, did I have an unbelievable time getting to know the people. So it's far beyond the nature, far beyond the wildlife. The people of Africa are unreal and are absolutely as authentic as they come. We spent an afternoon in this Maasai village getting to know the Maasai people, and this warrior and I had a great laugh at me trying to jump as high as him. As we continue, yes, these are my very pictures. These are not pictures taken from a magazine or a professional photographer. This is my camera. And I was able to capture these, and that's why I'm so proud of them, because I was able to take these pictures. So, yes, I love the people. Yes, I love the nature, but the wildlife was out of this world. I will never go to a zoo again, because hearing the words, "come see the animals in their natural habitat," just doesn't ring true to me anymore now that I have actually stepped foot on Africa. And you've probably heard that phrase, that Africa will change your life, and it's life-changing. And it didn't really resonate until I could experience. And I hope that you will have the same exciting experience by going to Africa yourself. So without further ado, let's get it to an expert. I'm just a traveler. I'm just a weary traveler like you. I want to introduce our friend and partner in the industry from African Travel, one of the most knowledgeable people about this type of travel, John Godfrey. John, I'd like to introduce you and welcome you to our webinar series. Take it away, my friend.
Ryan, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk about Africa, one of my passions, it's just an incredible experience, like you were saying. Great pictures. I love those shots, and that's one of the things that I think that people are just so blown away with is how close they get to the animals, and what great pictures that they actually take as well. So it is a really neat experience to be able to experience that. Looking at the map here, gang, we've got Southern Africa kind of in the beige colors, in Eastern Africa in more of the pink colors. One of the questions that I get many, many times is, what's the average time for a safari? And I'd say that most boomers are typically 12 to 14 days. A lot of people are not aware of how big this continent is. Texas goes in South Africa twice with a lot of land left over, and it's over 3,000 miles from, say, the Tanzania region down into South Africa. So we really do try to have you focus on one destination region or another if you don't have more than, say, 10 to 14 days. If you have more time, we can certainly see all of it in one shot. But we're really focused on experiential travel because in today's luxury world, experiences is everything. First off, though, I do want to talk about our roots and who we're part of. We're part of the Travel Corporation. The Travel Corporation is the largest family-owned travel business in the industry today. Many of the brands you might recognize here, Uniworld that does amazing river cruises throughout the world, Insight Vacations and Trafalgar Vacations, and Tiki Red Carnation Hotels and Brendan. We're just one company of about 40 different brands globally. I mention this because if you have traveled with one of our sister brands, you do qualify for a loyalty reward with African Travel. I do like to say we're local here and local there. Our roots actually go back 100 years. The Tolman family actually started in South Africa. We are physically African Travel located in Glendale, California. But we do have over 2,500 employees in Southern Africa. So we do like to say we've got boots on the ground here and boots on the ground there. One of the things that I am really proud and passionate about is the Tread Right Foundation. This is TravCorp's, or the Travel Corporation's, philanthropic branch of our businesses. And it is all about giving back. There's 3 areas that the Tread Right Foundation is focused on. Those areas are people, wildlife, and the planet. On every one of our itineraries, whether it's a Uniworld or an African Travel, we're giving back local to local communities, to the wildlife. When you travel with African Travel in the southern part, in any of our southern destinations, we are giving back for wildlife. We're going to begin giving into the Wild Aid Foundation and other areas as well. For East Africa, anytime you go to East Africa, we're helping support kids going to school in Kenya as well. And we can see here, one of the interesting things is that with the wildlife and the rhinos, a lot of people are not aware that rhino horn is actually worth about $1 million in Vietnam and China. So we're doing everything we can to give back because, unfortunately, in the last 40 years, 95% of the world's rhinos have been taken out, and it's very unfortunate. We are focused on very, very authentic experiences. As I mentioned earlier today, today's luxury is all about authentic experiences, and Africa absolutely delivers on so many of those areas. So what I want to talk about now is kind of looking at the different areas and why we would want to look at South Africa. Many times I get, hey, we're first time going to Southern Africa or going to Africa, and what would be the best destination for us to go to? Well, I'm going to bounce it back and have a few questions for you guys because many times we talk to clients and this is one of the clients' dream trip of a lifetime. The other person is going and they're interested, but it's the other person's dream trip. And what we found is there's so many diverse experiences in Southern Africa that it makes it a good match for many first-time visitors. We're going to look at kind of how a flow of an itinerary would go. And typically those itineraries are going to kind of start in Cape Town, then head up and go do a safari experience near the Kruger region or throughout Southern Africa, and then finish an itinerary up in Victoria Falls. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and start looking at some of these different options. This is a great shot of Cape Town. I like to position Cape Town as kind of the San Francisco of Africa. Many, many similarities, but from its waterfront that Fisherman's Wharf boasts in San Francisco to its incredible wine regions. The culinary experience is over the top. This we see here in this picture, we've got the FIFA World Cup Stadium that was built in 2010. That's that round dome that we see in the foreground. In the background, that's Table Mountain. We're going to look at Table Mountain a little bit more in depth, as well as all the ocean experiences that Cape Town. You know, Cape Town is one of the 7 botanical wonders of the world. Really, there's only 6 other places in the planet boast the diversity of flora and fauna that Cape Town has. Another big draw for South Africa is the value of the US dollar compared to the South African rand. Sherwin likes to boast or joke that we Americans eat almost for free in South Africa. When we go to Cape Town, we're literally eating for less than half price of what we would pay for meals here in the US. The next slide I want to show is kind of a short video of what maybe 24 hours might look like in the day in the life on an experience in Cape Town. Experience. As I mentioned earlier, one of the unique things about Cape Town is its culinary experience. Just an incredible culinary experience. The life in the city is very, very vibrant. I mentioned that they have a waterfront that's very similar to Fisherman's Wharf. I like to say, well, the Victoria and Alfred waterfront, I like to kind of compare, it's kind of a cross between Fisherman's Wharf meets 3rd Street Promenade meets Venice Beach. A fun, hip, funky place to be, lots of local entertainers and artisans and musicians. Just a fun experience to go and see what local life in Cape Town would be about as well. And I like to talk about some of the activities. When you go to Cape Town, you definitely want to go up to the top of Table Mountain, as we can see here. About a minute, 2 minutes up to the top in the gondola that we see here. If you are into hiking, we've got guides that can actually escort you up the mountain as well. Just a great day to go up and spend a few hours on the top of the mountain. There's actually about half a mile of paved walking trails up on the top. There's a restaurant where you can go and eat and spend some time up there as well. Also, one of those similarities that I like to point out, if you look in the top right-hand corner, that little island off there is their Alcatraz, also known as Robben Island. This is where Mr. Mandela was incarcerated for 17 out of his 28 years. Another great activity that we like to do is a journey along the Cape Peninsula. The Cape Peninsula is going to be very reminiscent of driving out of Carmel down 17 Mile Beach into Big Sur. Going to be spectacular views with the mountain range that meets the sea. Just an incredible experience. And along this journey, we're going to go to the Cape Point. This is the most southwestern point on the continent of Africa. This is where we will also start to see some of wildlife around this area. We'll see ostrich, we'll see zebras, lots of baboons in this area as well. And then moving on down the coast a little bit, once we get to Simontown, some of the most famous wildlife on this beach that so many people want to see is the famous penguins at Boulders Beach. These little guys showed up and they never left. They love this beach. These are African penguins, but they're also nicknamed the jackass penguins. Because when you arrive by private car to the beach, you're going to get out of the car and you're going to notice all these donkeys baying in the background. What this really is these are these jackass penguins that sound just like donkeys. So a lot of fun to go look at these jackass penguins. They're a real hoot to be able to look at as well. A lot of times people did not realize that South Africa, in the village of Hermanus, they boast the best whale watching in the world. These are the southern right whales. They're very agile, just like the California gray whale. They come up into the surf zone. These guys migrate between the months of May and November, and they show up in the village of Hermanus, in the Bay of Hermanus. For one reason, they go and they calf in this area. Just like the gray whales migrate down to Baja, they go there because the salt content in these bays is so high that when they birth, calves float like corks in this area as well. Now, another region that is very, very famous is the winelands. These vineyards date back to the 1650s. So much history in this area. Two very distinct regions. We've got the Franschhoek area, as well as the Stellenbosch region. The Stellenbosch would be Dutch, as well as Franschhoek would be the French regions. Just spectacular scenery, and a lot of guests would want to go either go out for the day and go wine tasting, or we can split your stay in Cape Town, and you can have some time in the city and then go out and stay in some of these vineyards as well. One of the unique things is such fresh farm-to-table meals that we get. You know, the locals around there just like to laugh, and they say, well, we've been organic farming for years. So it's a really, really neat experience to be able to get this incredibly farm-to-table freshness with the produce and meals as well. So that's typical stay in Cape Town is usually around 4 or 5 days. And the biggest complaint I hear about Cape Town is we actually didn't spend enough time there. There's always new experiences. It's just a wonderful destination. And then typically we move from our Cape Town experience on this safari up and go and do our safari. One of the things I like to point out first is many times, at African travel, 90% of what we do are customized itineraries. We can tweak and really dial in the types of accommodations that you really are looking for when you go and you stay. One of the things I like to point out is the differences between lodges and camps. When we refer to a lodge, that's going to be more like a lodge that would have multiple rooms or villas. But when we refer to a camp, we're referring to tents. Now, these are not Coleman tents from Walmart. These are incredibly well-designed, well thought out. We can see, this is my idea of a tent, where we've got king-size beds with bear claw bathtub, fireplace. You really wouldn't know a lot of these were tents, except for the fact that there is canvas on the walls. So we really do give you the ability to split the times and dial in the kinds of accommodations that you're looking for. So what typically happens on a day on safari is we're going to go on a game drive early in the morning, and we're going to typically go on a game drive late in the afternoon. We want to watch the animals wake up, and we want to watch the animals go to bed. And that's really when they're most active in terms of their activity levels as well. Let's watch a short video here on what a day on safari might look like in Southern Africa. mentioned, we're going to go on a game drive. We'll typically be in Southern Africa in kind of an open-sided vehicle like we see here. We will get very close to the animals. These animals are what we call habituated, meaning that they're used to seeing vehicles. It's part of their daily life, just like if you were driving through Yellowstone or Yosemite, we're looking at elk or bison. They just keep on doing their own thing. They don't think anything about us. And it's a really neat experience to see as well. One of the things that we'll do after we go and do our morning game drives, we'll come back, we'll have our lunch, and then we might do another morning activity, such as going to a village or a school visit. What a lot of people like to do, and one of my favorites, is the bushwalk itself. Very, very unique because it gives you a much different perspective. I'm all about seeing as many different perspectives when we go on holiday. If any of you have been to Sydney, Australia, I'm sure you went out on a harbor cruise because you have a much different perspective of the city. Just like when we go on a bushwalk, we have a much different perspective. We can touch the ground, we can smell things on the ground, just a different perspective than we have riding in the vehicles. We're going to see this little dung beetle here. Absolutely necessary in the ecosystem. When we look at 5 million animals on the Great Migration, this little guy is recycling all that dung. Without him, the whole system would fall apart. Now, this is a great shot that I love to talk about because, you know, the animals we're in their environment. This is a wild experience. A lot of people are not aware of how close these clients decided they wanted to sleep in one morning and stay in their tent, but they didn't realize that they were right across the way from the watering hole. And they started seeing all these animals show up, and lo and behold, they put their time-lapse camera out, and this is what they see. This is a destination that at the end of the day, in the evening, they'll always have an escort back to your room because the animals definitely run wild in and about and through the camps themselves. I always like to talk about what's trending and what's hot. Right now in Africa, the starbeds are really, really a neat experience. I like to equate the starbeds as kind of that over-the-water bungalow experience that you would have in Bora Bora. These couple, they have everything they need. They're going to have food, they've got refreshments, they've got a great bottle of wine. They've also got a radio, so in case they do run out of wine, they can call the office up, have them send out another bottle of wine. It's just a bottle of champagne. It's just a great experience. I love this shot because it shows the moving skies in Africa at night. If you've never been out underneath the stars at night in Africa, it's just such a spectacular experience. Remember, we're in the southern hemisphere, so we see constellations that we never see up in the northern hemisphere. The big one everybody likes to see is the Southern Cross. Just an amazing experience. And then from our safari experience, we're going to typically move on up into Victoria Falls. Victoria Falls, it's an amazing body of water. The locals call it the smoke that thunders. What is unique about this body of water is when it's at full capacity, it is the widest single curtain of water in the world. It's over 1 mile wide. When it's really pumping and cranking, 11.5 million cubic liters of water every second. That's the amount of water that New York City consumes in a whole day. Just an incredible amount of water. This is the Zambezi River. It starts its origins up in Angola, then flows into Zambia, and then out through Zimbabwe as well. One of those perspective experiences, absolutely getting up into a helicopter flight to get an aerial view of how magnificent and big these falls are. Another great activity to do while we're up at Victoria Falls is a sunset cruise on the Zambezi River. Just an amazing sight and perspective where we're going to be able to cruise, see the sunset. We're going to see these elephants. We're going to see swimming elephants moving from one side of the river to the other. We'll see all these animals coming down at the end of the day to get their last drink of the water. Just an incredible experience as well. And then what we see a lot of people doing is adding on one more destination. They've gone down there, they want to go that far, and they want to experience Botswana. Because what's really amazing about Botswana is they have two really cool big draws. The Chobe National Park and its elephant population. In the Chobe National Park, that's the highest concentration of elephants in the world. Over 200,000 elephants in this one national park alone. It is an incredible destination. The other unique thing about this destination is the Okavango Delta. It is the world's largest inland delta, and normally throughout the year, this would be a dry field, but between typically the months of April and August, this delta floods to about a meter, and it's a solid meter, stays there, and then we have a wonderful water safari, and that's really what Botswana, one of the things Botswana is known for, along with its conservation efforts, is its incredible water safari experience. We see here the Mokoro canoes. These are dugout canoes. Nothing more tranquil than riding through the bush and getting to experience that. Botswana does, in one day, we can do water safaris as well as dry land safaris, just a great diversity of experience. This is also where the Kalahari Desert is, and these are the meerkats, very, very photogenic, and they love to have their picture taken. But I also love this shot because what happens at the end of the day, typically in Africa, we want to just sit back, reflect, and talk and just think about what a great day we have. Now, this shot right here is basically what we call sundowners. This is happy hour in the bush, and it will always be in the most epic spot in that area. And I can't talk about Botswana and the Okavango Delta without showing you what a typical happy hour would look like in the bush as well. Also very much in that region is Namibia. Now, Namibia, I like to equate as kind of the outback of Southern Africa. If you've gone to Australia and you went to Ayers Rock and experienced the culture there, the desert, this is going to be very similar. In fact, in Namibia, they have the oldest deserts in the world. And in this shot, we see the Sosusle, which has the largest sand dunes in the world. It's a really neat experience, a cultural experience that would be very much like the Aborigine is the Himba tribes. The Himba folk have learned how to survive under very, very harsh conditions. So that's a really unique experience as well. Viewing the skies in Namibia is just as much as incredible as anywhere else. There's no light pollution, so it gives us a great, great perspective at night as well. And then typically, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to move up and see why we might want to go to East Africa and a safari in East Africa. One of the biggest things is when we hear folks say that we want to go see the Great Migration. Well, the Great Migration only typically happens between Tanzania and Kenya. This map kind of represents the whole flow. Many people think that the migration is only when they're crossing the river. Well, it's really a count of about 5 million animals. We've got about 3 million wildebeest, about 1 million zebras, about 500,000 impalas and gazelles, and they are doing an annual migration that's around 1,200 miles, and it takes them a full year. So we really want to find out a couple of different things from you folks and your travel advisors at Bon Voyage. We want to find out when you want to go, because when you want to go determines where you want to go. If you're open, we can plug you in pretty much any time of the year, but many times clients want to take their families. Multi-generational family is huge in this area, and we see families want to go during the months of July and August when the kiddos are out of school. So we would typically tag their migration component into Kenya. But we've got a lot of other activities we can do in and around this area. As I mentioned earlier, the Great Migration is typically going to happen in Tanzania from the months of typically November through about July. And the term Serengeti actually means endless plains in Swahili. And there's lots of iconic spots around this area. This is Lake Manyara, where they boast, during their migration, millions of pink flamingos, over 400 different species of birds in this area. Just an incredible. One of the unique things in this area is they boast tree climbing lions. It's not common to see lions in trees like we see leopards, but they do typically go up in these trees as well. Lots of good cheetah activity in this area. Like I mentioned, over 400 species of birds. But one of my favorite all-time shots and areas is the Ngorongoro crater. This is the shot that Ryan was talking about. Just an incredible experience here. One of the unique things about this crater is it is the world's largest cauldron. This actually was larger than the mountain at Mount Kilimanjaro before it blew or actually collapsed on itself about 2 million years ago. What took place is it did collapse, and what it left us is that rim is right at around 7,500 feet, and then we would descend into the crater 2,500 feet, where there's over 117 square miles of area for these animals to roam and to migrate back and forth. They don't ever leave. There's everything that they need in there. And one of my favorite experiences in the world is going to be a bush lunch or bush breakfast in the crater itself. That's one of the things that we can absolutely design. And your advisors at Bon Voyage can certainly set this up with us. It's just a really, really neat experience in the crater as well. And then we also have the Serengeti experience on the far western edge of Tanzania is where we kind of get into more primate country. We've got the chimps on the western edge as well. And we also have Kenya, which is also another amazing area. When we talk about the migration component in Kenya, it's kind of in the Masai Mara region of Kenya as well. But there's some other great experiences. Many people want to go to Nairobi and experience Giraffe Manor. This is the shot we see. This typically takes place every morning at breakfast. These giraffes come in and they share breakfast with us. Just a really neat experience. And then after that, they head over to the Giraffe Center where we can see them as well. Another great experience here is going to be the David Sheldrick Elephant Orphanage, where clients can actually go in and see the elephants. You actually can adopt an elephant. Now, you won't bring it home with you, but you will have the ability to get pictures and emailed information as well. There's lots of great safaring in this area. This is Mount Kilimanjaro, taken actually in Kenya as well. And then we've got the Masai Mara region where we see a shot here with the Great Migration, with the interaction of the wildebeest as well as the zebras. Lots of cat activity in this area. And one of the big things, probably the number one activity that we see in this area is going to be the balloon safari. Over the acacia trees, the Mara River, you see all those hippos out there in the middle. There's crocs lining along the river's edge. It's a fun experience to be able to experience. It's about an hour and a half with game drive, and then we'll land where we'll see a great champagne breakfast waiting for us. Just a lot of fun to be able to experience that. And the last destination I want to add on, because it's just a remarkable experience, and that is Rwanda. And this is where we get to go and experience the silverback and the mountain gorillas. There's really about 3 areas that we can look at these gorillas, and that's Rwanda is our top destination. And just an amazing experience. You're going to get really close. It is part of their interaction. You can see this I took just last November when I was there, and this fellow was coming through, letting me know his family's coming through. And I call this the procession, because he's coming through, and here comes his family with the teenagers, and then also the kids. I'll let you watch it. So much fun to watch these guys. Just an incredible experience. And again, we can hook you up in either Rwanda or Uganda for this. Also in this area, you have the golden monkeys. These guys are just incredible to watch. The other thing that we see a lot of clients doing is adding on a beach experience to the end of one of their safaris. We've got the island of Zanzibar right off the coast of Tanzania, very easy to access in East Africa. There's the Seychelles, the Mauritius Islands. Down in Southern Africa, we've got KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Mozambique is an amazing destination for scuba diving and snorkeling as well. So don't forget about those island destinations as well. And that's kind of it for my component and my part of the presentation. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and get Ryan back in here and see if we've got some questions, Ryan.
So yes, wow, what a whirlwind of a tour of the continent of Africa. And I know we could spend a lot longer diving into each of the individual areas, but what I hope we've done is we've given a little taste of what Africa can be. And we do have some questions here. And of course, I'd like to at least talk about the global situation that is going on right now. Are people going on safari right now, or is that kind of tabled for the immediate future?
Right now, for right now, we're definitely not safaring. Everybody's pretty much shut down, but we're looking to start travel up later on this year. We're very excited. What we've experienced is through this. We've experienced pretty much 95% of the bookings that we've seen that were on the books are rescheduling. We've got a lot of flexibility in terms of rescheduling. So we're seeing most of our business that's on the books rescheduling, and we're hoping to pick up travel again later on this year.
And in regards to incidents like what the world is seeing, Africa's pretty experienced in this area. Aren't the locals there a little bit further advanced in regards to some of these health concerns?
You know, this is clearly not their first run. We remember that we had the Ebola issues back in 2014, and they really have dialed in how to screen. They've been screening for years on international travel. So they do, this is not their first rodeo, I like to say, in terms of dealing with health issues. So they do get it, definitely. Great question.
You bet. Now, just a couple of maybe real basic questions that I'll ask from my wife's perspective. And it's interesting when you talked early on, you said typically a couple, you'll see it's either a bucket list destination for both, or in many cases, it's a bucket list destination for one of the couples, but maybe the spouse is not, it's not their dream trip, but they'll go because they want to support their spouse. So things come up like, how hot is it? Is it just unbearable? Because people talk about, oh, it's Africa hot. Well, remember, John, we're in Tucson, Arizona. So I think it might be 100 degrees today. I happen to be on my back patio. But how hot is it? Is it bearable?
Absolutely. You know, that is kind of a misconception. And I think a lot of people think of the Sahara, you know, when we think about that heat. But, you know, South Africa basically is south of the equator, what California is north of the equator. San Francisco, another one of those similarities, is north of the equator, exactly what Cape Town is south of the equator. So their weather is very much similar. Remember, the weather is opposite seasons of ours. Right now, they're going into their fall, heading into the winter months in our summer months. There's really only a couple of places you can pretty much go year-round somewhere in Africa. There is a green season typically in April in East Africa, so we probably move you to some other destination. But it's typically a year-round destination without any problems at all.
I'm sure I think I know the answer to this, but if somebody's considering, or maybe they have something on the books right now and are looking to reschedule, would it be safe to say that they should talk to their Bon Voyage travel advisor about all the options afforded to them?
Absolutely. We're seeing a lot of flexibility in terms of the airlines. We're getting options to reschedule through 2022. So it's really On our end, we're very, very flexible, and clearly understanding of the situation that's going on.
From a pricing standpoint, John, I wanted to touch on one segment of the travel industry that is booming, and that is solo travelers. Many, many people traveling by themselves. I think personally that a safari is very conducive to solo traveler. You can really become one with nature and the wildlife, meet some friends, but it's going to be an intimate experience in that Jeep. From a pricing standpoint, though, are there any advantages, or what's the policies you have laid out for solos?
So we do have some incredible single supplements, some itineraries that, if you're flexible, we've got some itineraries that offer no single supplement. So there are some real advantages for Africa for those solo travelers. Again, it will require a little bit of flexibility, clients portion, but other than that, I think we're good to go. In terms of flexibility, and it does draw itself, because many times we see those solo travelers, especially like I love those Tanzania itineraries, because you're going to join other people of like minds, and it just gives those solo travelers someone to travel with, because a lot of times they do want to go and meet other clients as well.
Yeah, just to confirm, you touched on you do have customizable trips, but you also have predetermined itineraries. So it's everywhere in between with African travel. Maybe give me that short answer again on how customizable can it get versus the stock standard itinerary.
Great. Thank you, Ryan, for looping that back around. So for our business model, 90% of what we do are customized itineraries. I kind of touched on it earlier about we want to match your personality. If you're a social butterfly and you like to interact, you're social, we love putting you in the Victorian Alfred waterfront, because it's gonna lend itself. You walk literally right outside your door, and you're in the action. Whereas if you need to go recharge your batteries and you are a business executive that just needs to go recharge, we've got great properties that lend themselves to a private experience. If you want a camp that's social, we've got camps where you will do communal dining, where you're going to meet other people, versus those that would have dining alone. So when you're working with your Bon Voyage travel advisor, these are the types of questions that they'll be asking, so that we can most accurately, what we want to do and Bon Voyage wants to do is exceed your expectations. So the more we know about what you're looking for, the better shot that we have exceeding those expectations.
Wow, you took that right out of our mission statement in regards to exceeding expectations, John. That's what we do at Bon Voyage, and we definitely want it to be something that's an authentic trip to the traveler. And so it's not just here, come buy this stock trip. It's a consultative experience so that you get even more than you ever bargained for. Like John is talking about. Maybe, John, in general terms, you really touched on two specific areas, South Africa and East Africa. Mm-hmm. There's many months that you can go, and some you will see the migration, some you won't. But are there any preferable times of the year that if you were to go, and let's say you'd never been to South Africa, what would be the best time to go to South Africa?
Yeah, I'll say that the peak season is typically June, July, through about August, September. Those are your highest traveled months. It is their winter, so it is a little bit cooler. What we do find is that the animals, as I mentioned earlier, in the kind of the middle of the day in their summer months, they're going to lay around just like we are in the middle of the day. But in the cooler months, you'll see that they're more active throughout the day. So from an animal and a wildlife perspective, it's probably they're a little bit more active. Now, they have in Southern Africa, specifically in South Africa, they have a dry season just like we do. And I think that is a great time to go. I love September after the peak season. because what takes place is the grasses have died down, and it's actually optimum for a photo because you don't get that one blade of grass that's sticking right up in front of that lion. And it's really easy to spot wildlife. There's less water around, so what they do is they typically congregate around the watering holes that are still around. So it's a lot of times easier to spot these animals as well.
If I could ask, how far in advance should someone book? I think I know the answer to this, but as people are thinking, obviously right now, if they wanted to go on a safari tomorrow, they couldn't. But on a typical booking cycle, how far should they book in advance? And then is that, even further out now with the situation we're in?
Yeah. So, Ryan, we see all spectrums of the booking process. We've typically, the larger the booking, it's typically booked further out. But that's not to say we saw before our current situation. I saw bookings that were booking to Egypt for 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. So I've seen those as short as 2 weeks, but I've also seen a typical, I would say typical would be 12 to 14 months. But clearly that within 6 months is not an issue for us. It's all we do. We solely focus on Africa. So we know where those last minute availability is going to be as well. The other thing is that if you guys as clients have specific places that you want to go, it might be advantageous to book out a little bit earlier. For example, we saw that shot of Giraffe Manor in Nairobi. That actually books up about a year in advance. The other thing is that the gorilla permits, there's only 96 a day in Rwanda, and those also sell out about a year in advance. So if there's specific activities and specific experiences that you want to have, I would say we would want to get a little bit earlier start than later.
Excellent. Well, John, you have been extremely informative and entertaining. The pictures and imagery have just been spectacular. I would expect nothing less from the destination of Africa that provides. You could almost just sit here and watch the slideshow for the next 10 minutes and really enjoy it without us talking. But I wanted to thank you, John Godfrey from African Travel, not only one of the best in the business, but a good friend of Bon Voyage Travel, for joining us today. Thank you to our attendees for joining us. And I encourage you to reach out to Bon Voyage Travel. If you have an advisor, you should know how to reach them. If you don't, you can reach us at 520-797-1110. Or you can go to our website, and that is bvtravel.com. So B as in Bon, V as in Voyage, travel.com. Reach out to us through that channel, and we'd be happy to connect you with this dream trip of a lifetime to Africa. And I'll leave you, as most people talk about Africa, and the biggest key here is I left Africa a year ago. Africa has not left me. There is no doubt. The impression that is left on me is lifelong. I hope that you have a chance to start dreaming or continue the dreaming process during this global pandemic that we're in, and start booking that 2021 safari right now, because as John said, these do book out a year in advance. John, thank you again, and thank you to all of our attendees. We hope to see you on a future Bon Voyage Travel webinar series. We host them every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Tucson time. Go to our website, bvtravel.com, to see more. We have the entire month of May listed out, and we'll be ready to take your RSVPs. Take care. Have a great afternoon.